Hi class. So I'm going to be answering your questions this week, but first thing, I wanted to talk about grading because the district has just decided how we are going to actually grade this quarter. And the options for distance learning, since it's not a typical classroom, are not going to be like ABC letter grades. They're going to be pass and not pass. So if you have been participating in this class, turning in projects, answering questions, you are going to be fine. If you've missed a couple of projects, you don't need to worry about catching up. You just need to continue turning in your weekly projects. So at this point, we have this week and three more projects, and we're done for the quarter, guys. So if you are worried at all about your grade, I wanted to reassure you that this is different than it would be in school. If you have turned in any projects at all, you are going to be just fine. So that said, let's get into answering your questions. What are we doing next? Good question. We have 2 weeks left, so that's probably going to amount to 6 more project options, and you only have to do 2 of them. I have a few ideas. I've recorded a texture video for next week, drawing texture, and I think I am going to, along with this post of the video, include a question post about what you guys would like to see, because I would like to get some more projects out to you that you're really and truly interested in. So that's something I'm going to be posting today. Are there required projects? My requirement for this class has been that you complete 1 project for each week, and I've been posting multiple projects each week for you to choose from. If you've been confused at all, I apologize. You probably have not been reading all of my posts if you're confused, because this entire time I've tried to stay very consistent in saying you need to turn in 1 project each week. Try to spend at least 30 minutes on that project. And then after you turn that in, the other projects are optional. If you choose not to do them, you can submit them without a picture and just explain to me which project you did do for the week. If that's confusing, let me know, but dear Lord, at this point, I hope you're not confused about the expectations. And then I'm gonna, at this point, transition into the drawing explanations that I have recorded for this video, and we're gonna be first covering landscapes. So we'll transition to that now. Thanks, guys. The first question I received was about shading a landscape, but before I can get into shading, I am just thumbnailing or drawing a very small version of a sketch of this generic landscape that I made up. So this was not drawn from a reference image. It was done very quickly. It's not the best or the worst example, but I just needed something to illustrate the points that I'm about to make about a landscape. So when you're drawing a landscape, it's going to include a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And what those things are the foreground is what's closest to you. So in this picture, the flowers, the middle ground is, in this case, the lake, what's in the middle of the photo, and then the background in this photo too would be the mountains. Another thing to think about when looking at a landscape, if you can see into the distance really far, there's something that's called atmospheric perspective. This picture is a really good example of that. The atmosphere in the distance makes things blurry and look like they are getting lighter in color. So those 2 things, foreground, middle ground, background, and atmospheric perspective, are important to consider when you're shading a landscape because, and here you can see the example that I'm drawing, the foreground is going to have the greatest amount of detail because it's the closest to you and it's what you can see the best. So a lot of detail in the foreground. In my case, that's the pond and the very large pine tree. Those have darker values because of atmospheric perspective. The things getting further away into the distance are lighter in value and have less detail. What's in the foreground, the tree and the pond, have the darker values and the greater amount of detail because they're closer to the viewer. And then, like I said, as things get further away, due to atmospheric perspective, they are not going to be as dark, and due to them being far from your eye, they're not going to be as detailed. Here I have a value scale. My next question was about creating value with ballpoint pen, because the gestural landscape drawing that I did in the video was in ballpoint pen. The most important thing to think about here is how much space is in between your lines. If you are trying to create a very dark value, there needs to be almost no space between your lines. And then here I'm showing you that the more space you leave between the lines, and you can vary pressure a little bit, um, but the more space between the lines, the more it goes towards those medium and then the lighter values. All right, last question was about blending colors in colored pencil and choosing colors to blend with. If I choose orange, colors that are going to blend very well with orange are going to be red and yellow because red and yellow make orange. If you are having problems choosing colors, consult a color wheel. Google a color wheel. If we were in the classroom, I would point to the back of the room. Here's another example. If I'm using green, blue and yellow will blend well because blue and yellow make green. On to the example. First thing, I have to draw something that I'm going to be blending in. I drew some stripes. Draw whatever you want. Then, the first step with the color is to lay down a base of color. In this case, I chose to lay down some blue. I'm using light pressure so that I will have the opportunity to blend on top. And then on top of that light pressure blue, I am taking that color family that I chose and gradually adding a little bit more pressure, gradually adding a little bit more color, layering up. Keep in mind that if you push really hard with the colored pencil, it is going to be really hard to blend because of that waxy surface that you're making with the pressure. The rest of this video is just me showing you a few more examples because in the video that I posted for this weekly assignment, there was only one color example. So if I chose orange, and you can see I've laid down a little base of orange, something that blends well with orange is red because red and yellow make orange. The other color that I chose to blend on this stripe was purple because red and blue make purple. Purple and red are beside each other on the color wheel, so they blend together really nicely. What I'm getting at is that when colors go together to make each other, if that makes sense, they blend together really nicely. So this person's question was about if I don't have this certain blue color, or if I'm shading with a color other than the blue and yellow that she showed me, how do I choose a darker color to blend with? And what I want to reiterate to you here is that you don't need to use black as the dark color every time. You can use colors that are beside each other on the color wheel because they're going to blend together really nicely. And if you choose black, it's a really strong color and it can overpower your drawing really quickly.